Hello, welcome Taurus Gemini Moon sign people to your Taurus Gemini New Moon reading. This is your Lunar New Year, and your Lunar New Year video has been posted. This is Gemini energy. Yes, it's very powerful in the sense that in your Taurus Vedic soul sign, the moon sign energy, that intuitive, deeply internal, wise space is actually in some nakshatras that bespeak to the new moon in new ways. You know, the new moon is all about Great Mother, Father, God getting it on. And to use the analogy of love making, it's a very yin new moon. It's a very receptive new moon. And Great Mother during the new moon season, which is the beginning of the emotional cycle that we look at here with Great Mother Speaks, designed for people going through the dark night of the soul, and in particular those who are dealing with mama drama trauma. The new moon is an opportunity to not only establish new wishes to consciously work through this cycle, but to really look at what the energy is Great Mother is pulling from Great Father. In other words, that receptive mode. And what are the energies we have? Well, we have the moon, which is dark, the dark night of the soul, analogous to that, having to do with this deep space. You know, we talk about deep space, we talk about the void, and it's definitely that kind of energy. But with Gemini, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of intelligence and communication, and that's the Western, you know, that's the active part. Gemini is masculine, it's young, it's very active. And on that soul space of the moon, which is that soul space that Gemini downloads from in Taurus, the nakshatra is Rohini, whose symbol is the cow. It's ruled by Soma, which is the moon. And so again, that deep space, that is where Gemini, in all of its fervor during this new moon, even as quiet as it is being new moon energy, is pulling from this very passionate, beautiful, well-composed, articulate, abundant, very fertile energy. And so it's a very sophisticated lovemaking with the sun also in Taurus Gemini. So the sun, however, is in the nakshatra in Taurus of Mikshira. And so that energy, which is the yang, the sun, is very joyous, beautiful. It's kind of soft, gentle, entrepreneurial. It goes forward, but up to a certain point. It's not a fighting yang energy. It's, again, that Gemini going between two worlds energy with purpose. So we have this moon that's receiving this enthusiasm. And for you, I would definitely look at what Great Mother had to say to you about the Lunar New Year, because it will open, of course, with this moon. The recent past, forgot there's a candle there. Recent past is coming out of that Sagittarius full moon that was May 29th, and realizing that things are coming together for you. Right now, having realized that, you are implementing a lot of self-mothering, and you're really embodying this Rohini feminine energy right now. You're regrounding yourself in your new way of being. In other words, and how things have come together in the last couple of weeks, you are actually doing the internal work to course correct, which has required you to take a look at what your needs are and how those needs are being fulfilled. You are definitely looking forward to this lunar cycle and the full moon. You have 3 full moon cards here, and the chakras that you have them in are definitely indicative of grounding yourself in your internal truth and what you know, and moving ahead with clear intention and accepting what is for you and what is not for you, and taking care of those needs. We have this theme of love making, great mother, father, God, and we have this idea of being receptive, beautifully so, to what is being communicated, the movement in your life that is occurring, how you are moving in your life right now, social ease, because even though you could verbally attack, and you might want to, you really don't feel the need to do that. What you're really wanting to do is simply express the truth of who you are. And that's a beautiful thing, especially when you're talking about being truthful to yourself, telling yourself the truth about who you are. So it looks like things are coming together for you in ways that are meaningful to you on a soul level. Speaking of that Taurus Vedic energy, that soulful energy, it's really an earthy, a grounding energy. And you're speaking from that. You're adhering to the law of destiny and free will, fulfilling what it is that you need to at this particular time, which is taking care of yourself. There has been some neglect that you have felt, and you've given up on others fulfilling your need to be cared for. And you know that it is your birthright to be cared for, and you're doing that for yourself. That's what's giving you the motivation right now to do that for yourself. It's a real beautiful, beautiful thing. What I'm seeing here with the recent past and, your present and kind of the shadow of, this intention coming forward through this self-mothering, through this self-care of expressing yourself, that perhaps as part of your new moon ritual in establishing what your wishes are for this cycle, that there just be some calming of the mental anxiety, just calming of some of the emotional stress, those types of wishes, because you're on the path. You're definitely on the path. You may still be triggered, I'm saying here, because you are wanting to live in integrity and honor your birthright. And it just might be some triggers that you're still getting, some really strong sensitivities out there. But presently, you are well. You're doing well. Yes, things are definitely coming together. Your heart above understanding that unconscious, that higher intelligence, that emotional intelligence is very strong. You expect that this heightened understanding is going to bring you woes because it is so strong, because you are so confident. It's first house energy. And so, when the new moon is in our first house, that is the lunar new year. That is your astrological lunar new beginning. And so, if you are identified with mama drama trauma, or with your unique dark night of the soul, you've been through the trenches with this at this particular time. Maybe what you are wishing is to be able to communicate what you think and now understand as your experience of yourself. And maybe that is where the practice and the self-care is most needed. Usually we think of self-care as, of course, the bubble baths and preparing the meals that we need to sustain us in the most healthy ways possible. But, just kind of coddling ourselves a little bit, indulging ourselves, or just having clear boundaries is self-care, self-mothering as well. But we don't often equate self-mothering with really taking the time to be to ourselves, listen to videos and teachings and reading books like this, doing the coaching work that's required for us to actually communicate what we have been processing through our dark night. Many times when we're triggered and enraged, it comes as a result of a suppression of anger, and it's suppressed because we don't know how to address it productively. And this is not to say that you do this and then you'll do that, but it is to say that with the supportive energies now available, and there are a lot of different energies that are available at this particular time, as I mentioned in the beginning, with the nakshatras and also with some of the transits that are occurring too, with Mars and Venus, to actually, and Uranus, Uranus is in Taurus. Now that's Taurus in the Western astrology, which is your 12th house, but that's 12th house energy that's really putting you in a state of reflecting with gratitude on what you have learned about your values, what you have learned about what makes life living for you, and bringing that into this new emotional cycle for the year to come and for the next several years to come with Uranus and Taurus. So you have new values that you haven't articulated yet, and you do expect that to create some challenges for you, and you're upset about um, changing from one way of thinking to another way of thinking at this particular time. It's a dance that you're doing as you're centering yourself with this new synthesis, this new consciousness. It's a dance that you're doing between knowing that everything's okay and then realizing, okay, now, is it really okay in my practical life, in my everyday life, in my relationships? Is it really okay, or am I just trying to convince myself of this? It's a back and forth. It's a back and forth. And what Great Mother is coming through, that still small voice of wisdom, of intuition, from that Taurus, that sidereal. Most of you will be Taurus in a sidereal. Some of you will actually be Gemini in the sidereal as well. And so you want to look at that video, which would be the Cancer video, to see which resonates best with you. Great Mother's saying that this dance, this emotional dance, this intuitive emotional dance, you're downloading from the Taurus, this regrounding and, the self-mothering, but then you are actually reacting to situations with rage. You're expecting there to be some challenges with communicating what you're experiencing. You're wanting to communicate what you have been experiencing, what you've been going through in this journey through the dark night of the soul with others. It is such a tremendous challenge for you at this time to do so, because part of the frustration is that you're having to really reevaluate some fantasies that you've had about your mother. You know, with MDT, we have to grieve the mother that we want in order to accept the one that we have. And grieving is letting go. We know the 5-step process of doing that. And there is a step of anger. And in fact, it's the second step after, you know, denial. So here we talk about acknowledgement, and we talk about, instead of anger, you know, self-inquiry. And so what are some of those fantasies that you're really having a hard time letting go of? Because if you're upset and anticipating that how you communicate your new divine expression, which is what androgyne is about, then the breakdown has to do with not that you don't know that this change is going to create challenges, but that you do know. And that's what's making you upset. And there's an expectation that's still there that things should be different, otherwise you wouldn't be upset. So don't fall prey to the tendency to now begin justifying the abandonment or abuse, because it's a vicious family cycle. It didn't start with your mother, it didn't start with your mother's mother, but it can end with you. It can end with your mother as well, if she's willing, ready, and available to do the healing work. This is work. It's not popular. In fact, it's taboo. But you want to ask yourself those questions towards Gemini Moon people. This moon is a very kind of a quiet flight. You know, it's a sweet kind of lovemaking moon. And what Great Mother is coming through and she's saying is that there is a huge opportunity with this moon. It's, in fact, a super moon. It's very close to the Earth. Super moons are when the Earth is very close, or the moon is very close on the ecliptic to the Earth. 90% more than usual. So of course we can't see a new moon like we can see a super full moon, but that makes it even that much more powerful. It's very powerful. You will feel it. And so that's why I want to spend a little time with Sekhmet. When that comes up for you, realize that you are revising a sense of self. You are reevaluating your entire sense of self. This is first house energy. Great Mother's encouraging you to center yourself. Click those heels 3 times, body, mind, and spirit. Really get clear about where you are and where you want to be. And that you have a right to stand where you are as well as where you want to be. It's a choice, but you will continue to do this dance until you consciously center yourself in the choice, in the decision, which probably won't happen until the first quarter, which is going to be in about a week from this new moon. And the first quarter moon is all about making decisions to face challenges. And it's going to take the journey that you're on to the next level. Just as when Dorothy clicked her heels 3 times here in the centering card, and when she opened her eyes, she was back on the farm. New level of understanding and communicating herself from where she was before. So the journey, of course, was internal as well as external. It was external for us viewing the movie, wasn't it? But of course, she had never left home. Or had she? Hidden influences for you. Sheila Nagig, this is talking about a resistance to making that choice, but it's not stopping you. And so a better word would actually be a fear, apprehension about making the choice. But Sheila Nagig would indicate that you already really have on that deep soul level. You've already chosen, Taurus Gemini, what you want to do. You've already chosen that. That is, in fact, what you want to do, is communicate yourself on that soul level you have. It just really probably hasn't percolated up to the ego, earth-centric, Western astrology level of your Gemini moon at this point, where in your mind, you're thinking and understanding, you know that you already have made that choice. You're going to express yourself. You're going to sacrifice whatever needs to be let go of in order for you to do it. Sacrifice is giving up something of value for something of greater value. Something has to go, an idea, a belief, an attitude, a behavior that you have in order to open up to your expression. This is about self-acceptance. Again, what I think what Mother is really saying about the self-mothering card of Isis for you. That's a hidden influence. Again, you may not be aware that you are open to it. It's been percolating, but you may not be aware that you're ready. What you're expecting is that things are going to turn out in your favor. There's going to be fairness. There's going to be justice on your behalf. And it would follow that you would make your conscious decision in about a week from the new moon, about the 20th, 21st, 22nd, which will be the summer solstice. That's solar energy in the northern hemisphere. And of course, a halfway mark in terms of the collective consciousness. But for the collective unconsciousness of Taurus Gemini, you will be a new moon energy at that time, still in terms of your lunar new year. And so you will be using this justice. And really how things turn out as it relates to you communicating and expressing yourself, it's not going to be what you expect. It's going to not necessarily disappoint you in terms of all the work that you've committed into doing your inner work. But it's going to, again, take you into a deeper level of understanding and openness is really what this is about. This new moon is a very receptive moon, and so you're open, man. I mean, Taurus Gemini, you are wide open, and you are really embracing your soul journey. And so there are a lot of things that are coming up for you. I would say that for those of you who have been, at least for the last 6 months, consciously doing your inner work, the downloads that you're going to be receiving during this new moon, and expect them. They're coming. It's a very powerful new moon for that, if I haven't emphasized that enough. If you've been already doing your work, you're going to be getting so many downloads about how to move forward with your work. And you're going to receive so much guidance. Just be ready for it. If I were you, I would try to really focus on new moon wishes that are, Gemini in nature, so that you can bring them and percolate them up to that emotional level, to that mental level. Things about how you move in the world, your routines, your scheduling, you know, your is your body at rest, or is your body at movement for most of the time of the day? Is there an imbalance there? Is your body at rest too much? Are you too sedentary? Are you wanting to be a bit more active? Those kinds of wishes around that. Your communication skills. Some of your frustrations might be that, yes, you can communicate very well for the most part, but there are some challenges in certain areas. Where do those, in other words, being specific with your prayers for guidance, clarification, balance. The reading might be useful for you, personal reading, to do that, so that you can streamline the messages that you receive. You can filter them. A lot more clarity. What Great Mother saying would be useful to let go of is the need to run away from your challenges. It's saying that this regrounding process, as frustrating as it may most definitely be for you at this time, something about maybe wanting to either run away, or some of you might need to get away from your present situation. So I think this goes with the justice I was talking about. For those of you for the last 6 months have been doing your work, to be open to the downloads and be specific about the guidance that you're requesting so you can filter it. For those of you who are just now tuning in to Great Mother Speaks, just like, what are you talking about? And you're just now kind of saying, this is something I want to do, I want to pay a little bit more attention to. I would also say be cognizant of downloads, but for you, since this would be new for you, I would encourage you to reflect on your last 6 months in ways that you may not have been prior to this time aware of the internal work that you've been doing. For example, you may have noticed since the full moon at the end of May that some things came up for you that were very difficult, that were very challenging, that had to do with what has been a problem for the entire year, or issues in relationships that you've been harboring for the entire year kind of came to a head. And just kind of look at those types of situations so that you can begin to see a through line and go inward. Go inward. Really evaluate the conflicts, the dramas in your life, and the rage that you've been feeling, I would say for you, is where you're going to find the justice. You're going to begin to see why you've been feeling that way. Many times with MDT, and as we're going through any dark night of the soul, there is a great deal of guilt and shame about embracing our right to feel what we feel, which is why denial is so big. It's a huge issue. And as long as we're able to acknowledge how we feel, and it may be frustrating at this particular time, if we can see beyond the frustration, be open to it, be open to what it wants to teach us, the experience is there to teach us, then we can see the justice that is there. And we can see what's been triggering us. We can see areas where we've been codependent in relationships. I'm not okay unless you're okay. I'm not going to accept and acknowledge MDT unless you accept and acknowledge mama drama trauma. I'm going to justify my abandonment and abuse as long as you justify it. That's codependency. That's MDT acceptance on the lower level of, I'm not going to say lower level, let's stick with the yin and the yang. That's MDT acceptance on a yin level. It's on an unconscious level. That's why here we talk about the moon sign, the collective unconsciousness. Okay, so that's MD acceptance on a yin level. And so, again, if you've been on that unconscious level with it, this is an opportunity for you to become more conscious, because you're going to get those downloads to assist you with that process of clarity. MDT acceptance on a yang level is emancipation. So getting back to what needs to be let go of, do you need to emancipate yourself from your environment? Or do you need to resist the urge to do so and face your challenges? So those of you who need to resist the urge, I would say what Great Mother is saying, let go of, is the tendency to run away, is the tendency to avoid what needs to be sacrificed in your life in order to be made whole. If you are feeling that you need to leave a bad situation, and of course with MDT we talk about loving detachment. We have to lovingly detach from the MDT in order to heal our triggers before we can re-engage in the environment in healthy ways. If that's what you're needing to do, that's what you're needing to do. The advice from Great Mother is to do exactly what you need to do. Do you need to vamp? Or do you need to face the music? That's the double yang card. It says Mother Mary though, because the Mother Mary energy is a very strong maternal energy. So you have Isis here, which is the strongest maternal energy on the planet. So you are engaging the magnetism of Rohini and that Taurus Vedic astrology to be conscious of ways that you need to take care of yourself. And we see here with the Mother Mary card, the law of divine father, that it's important that you follow through with the truth that you're telling yourself, with how things are coming together for yourself, and not to sacrifice that, but to take action and sacrifice in any and everything that is threatening that coming together. That clarity, that synthesis of body, mind, and spirit that is so necessary for you right now. That's the advice from Great Mother. Take what works for you, leave the rest. In the immediate future, you're going to need to establish boundaries towards Gemini Moon people, and these boundaries have to do with you being clear about what is okay and what is not okay for you in your life. This is very powerful. I mean, this is super moon power reading, boy. She's saying, look, this is a new moon card. I'm pointing at your gut. What are you feeling in your gut? What is that visceral response when you walk into a room? When you sense someone's presence? When you get that beep on your phone and you know it's a text from somebody? Who is that somebody? Are you looking forward to it? Are you dreading it? Is there avoidance? She's wanting you to, instead of being in a yin state at this particular time, even though it's a super new moon, black moon, void, the womb of the cosmos, for you, this is first house energy. First house has to do with what? Identity. Who you see yourself to be. And you see yourself as someone who is taking on a soul evolutionary journey at this time. It is excruciating. That's why there is a tendency to want to avoid. That's why there's frustration. But there's something coming up in you that is wanting to be expressed. That primal yin yang balanced quality that has to do with acting on how you feel. There is a destiny that you're sensing. And Great Mother is saying that in the immediate future, in order to fulfill that, you will need to define appropriate boundaries based on how you feel. What's the truth? Who needs to understand what is okay and what is not okay. Boundaries are like the shifting sands. Okay. We feel a certain way during a certain period of time, just like the seasons. We're coming at the end of a spring season with this new moon in Gemini, the mutable sign, shifting us from spring into summer. Okay. When we come back for our full moon reading, that's the cardinal earth sign of Capricorn that'll be establishing the summer. But as we close out the season, what in this season towards Gemini Moon people is working for you and that you need to define as working for you and what is not? That you need to establish with clarity and conciseness with yourself first, then others, what is working for you and what is not. Be specific. Be self-loving, self-compassionate, and self-forgiving. Embody the spirit of your divine expression is what Great Mother is saying. Embody it. Own it. It's coming through anyway, so you might as well. Own it. You're being reborn. It's a process of rebirth. Happy Lunar New Year. Embody it like a baby New Year. There's a newness, there's a freshness that you're feeling. And so make that your conscious awareness. Make that your perspective. Make that your talking point in establishing those boundaries as you cross into this new threshold beyond the womb into the world. Possible outcome for you is the Doctor card. Now, this has to do with double yin energy. Again, that very deep, dark, yin, intuitive space. And so I would say that as you embrace your divine expression, remember that your birthright is to be happy, healthy, and whole. Great Mother is going to be downloading to you ways to fulfill your wants and desires, not in material ways, but in ways that will restructure and refine your internal space so that you can feel your way through what it is you truly want and need. Understand? Understand? We have to first feel it. And as we heal it, as we make it whole, as it starts to make sense and things start to come together, then we can communicate them to others. And usually when it comes together like that within us, that is the space where the law of attraction is activated. When it's clear in our internal space, that's what sets off that power. So she's inviting you to look at that as a possible outcome for you with the energies that you have and that you're working with. In the long term, the angels are going to be really working with you on this. This is new stuff for you, and you're not going to be left alone. Just posted a video about MDT and our divinity. You might want to check that out. That's what the angels help us with. They help us to live in loving detachment. And we can only do that when we embrace our divinity. Our divinity is knowing 3 important things. First, that we are dearly loved divine children of the great Mother, Father, God. Secondly, that because of that, we're never judged or condemned and never left alone. The angels prove that. What's so important about angels? Well, we have legions of them because we've had different angels throughout different lifetimes. We have different angels for different phases within this life. You have different angels for different lunar emotional phases, in fact. You have angels that help you garden outside. You have angels that help you cook. You have angels that help you with your kids. They are assigned. Want to know a little thing about getting some guidance that really, really is very effective? We talk about our waking and our dream state with Great Mother energy. Before you go to sleep, just ask the angel who's on duty with you for that night, okay? They're on duty with us for different things, and right now, this is your thing. This is your thing right now that you're working on. And so you have angels that are specializing in helping you to express yourself. You have angels who were created to assist souls in their divine expression. That's what they do. They're not new to this. This is what they do. And they're assisting you right now. They're assisting you to live in loving detachment. What is that? To accept what is with love. It's a process and it's a practice of, first of all, accepting and acknowledging how we truly feel and asking ourselves, what is it that is making me so angry? Again, that reflection for some of you is going to be very powerful. And your outcome for this new moon is the Newt card. The Newt card is the orphan card. It's a new moon card. It's the new moon root chakra card. So the new moon card, for some of you, for all of you watching, you are just recognizing that you have entered the dark night of your soul, that you are ready, willing, and able to to reground yourself, but you have no idea why you have been targeted, why you have been left alone, why you have been subjected to this type of treatment. You do not know why. And you really do feel that it's unjust, and you are wanting the people who should help you at this time. This is how the end of this phase in the lunar cycle from new moon to full moon may feel for you. So check out the full moon reading, because I think that with this new moon saying this about the orphan, that's why when justice comes around the first quarter, about a week from now, it's going to be surprising. You are not going to be expecting what you're going to get, the justice that's going to come. You are not alone, obviously. The angels are with you from here into the long term with this particular issue. This is, again, a beginning for you. It's first house energy. It's your lunar new year, and this energy is what's kicking it off. So you have some time to work it out. Stick with the process. Thank you so much for watching, sharing, and liking. If you're new, to subscribe. But above all and most of all, remember, Great Mother loves you. And I do too.
Okay, a word on the nodes is that they are typically viewed as too ethereal to be grounded in the world, too much of a conceptual aspect of the astrological chart to be really practical and practically interpreted as meaningful in your life now, which is why they are associated with the soul and kind of, okay, we can't really understand that. It's bigger than we are. We're not going to go there. And although that is true, the part that we can go to when we're looking at lunar aspects is that in the North Node, or Rahu, we know that that is the evolutionary direction the soul is headed. We know that it is in large part the soul intention for its incarnation this particular lifetime. And knowing that, the sign it's in, the house it's in, and what aspects that house and those planets tell us the nature of the incarnation, what's important to it. Now, bringing that from the ethereal and the conceptual into a grounded interpretation requires us to understand the sentient nature of our physical senses: hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, waking, sleeping state, the state of health, the state of unhealth, etc. Those subtleties of life is what brings the nodal into the practical sphere. For example, all aspects of our nodes always oppose one another. And we know that if your Rahu is in your fourth house, your north node, then the 10th house is where Ketu, or your south node, is. Conceptually, we know that that soul is here to ground itself in the physical realm, specifically domestically, in its home, through property that it owns, to ground itself physically in the world. Now, regardless of the other aspects in the chart, because we're talking about the nodal axes, it's going to have a holographic effect on the entire chart as it relates to its incarnational purpose. Everything is ultimately pointing towards that in their own way based on other aspects of the chart. But if you could just imagine the yang symbol, the circle with that arrow to the right, finding its ultimate purpose in this earth realm, steering towards it, pointed towards it, and finally incarnating as the physical form of the cosmic calculus that makes up our entire chart, which is our internal wiring kind of laid out, splashed upon the stars and constellations that we can read and interpret. We will see that the north node and the nodal axes in general give us a look into how to ease the internal stresses of that life incarnated purpose. So regardless of what it is, there will always be stresses associated with it, issues of insecurity, self-esteem, and how we are experiencing that incarnational purpose on an individual basis. So with our example with the North Node in the fourth house dealing with domesticity and the mother, there will be challenges associated with the home and the mother. There will be stresses associated with that, because that is the stuff that evolution is made of, that conflict, that yin and that yang purification process that occurs. So just looking at that, we can see that there will be opportunities throughout life to grow and evolve, which can be seen in the chart. To further ground that, we want to look at what your chart is telling you about your health, what your chart is telling you about your career, about your relationships, how you see the world, finances, and spirituality, because it's going to inform the strengths and the challenges associated with that. As we do that, returning back to the subtleties of our waking dreaming state, our clairs, clairvoyance, our clear seeing, our clear feeling and touching, clairsentience, clear audience, those extra sensory abilities. What happens is our unique strengths in those areas are constantly offering us information, tools, and guidance about how to confront, remedy, and transform those challenges and those stresses. So let's say, for example, with the North Node in the fourth house, one of the aspects is to have a sixth house everyday life situation where the sun is there. Or I'm not going to get too deeply into the example because there's so many variations, but let's just say that in your everyday life, you're very focused toward what you want to do. You're very clear about what you want to do, but maybe in your career there's some conflict for one reason or another. That's going to create a challenge, perhaps, in creating the necessary revenue to get the home that you want to feel grounded. That is going to work for you to feel that domestic grounding. And so, with the South Node, or Leo and K2, there's going to be a tremendous tendency to want to fall back on that default, which is what the South Node is, the soul default, the many lifetimes that the soul has had in that particular energy, which is all about accomplishment, success, in career, and that sort of thing. Wanting to fall back into that, even in light of this lifetime, that being a challenge, there being some corners cut, perhaps, or some illegalities, perhaps, as it relates to acquiring the home that you want, or dealing with maternal issues and that sort of thing. So that's how we can ground it a little bit further and look for opportunities with our dreams, with how we are managing our sleeping life, our circadian rhythms. Are they really supporting us in a way that we feel energized enough to fulfill what we need to fulfill, to acquire what we need to acquire to feel grounded? If we need to be a bit more creative than what the present lifestyle is in acquiring a home, do we need to perhaps be a little bit more intuitive with regard to what may be other opportunities to acquire those things? Maybe there are people that are wanting people to do some house sitting around your area, but you really haven't tuned into that. But there may be some intuitive guidance in that area where you could easily do that. The soul is always downloading intuitive information to us, and it is through our sentient voices, feelings, and unctions that we can connect to exactly what it is that we need to fulfill those things. And so that is what we look at in a moon reading as it relates to the nodes. We look at where those strengths could possibly be for you. Some people have more of an ability to hear. They may have clearer audience based on the fifth chakra prevalence of Mercury energy throughout their chart. That kind of thing is what we're looking at in a moon sign reading. That's the perspective that we are able to gain a clearer view into how to use your sensitivities, how to identify them and work with them to fulfill your practical needs that the soul has in this lifetime, for you to feel the balance and the equilibrium that you need within yourself as you deal with this very challenging issue of mama drama trauma. For more information about Mama Drama Trauma, visit mamadramatrauma.info.